Abortion. It's a hot topic today. How do I feel about it? I'm against it. I personally would never have one. I know how to avoid them. I don't get women pregnant that don't want to have my kid. I have a choice, and I make it every time I do the thing that has the potential to result in children. I'm aware of where babies come from, so I prevent abortion by not getting women pregnant because I'm a responsible adult. If every man that has an opinion about abortion did like me, they'd have nothing to say about the issue because there would be no abortion. Nobody is actually pro-abortion. It's just another made-up boogeyman the right fabricate to demonize the left and to subjugate women. Sorry, if you don't like that I call you out on your bullshit, then maybe you should stop selling it. So who's having abortions and why? Well, women that are pregnant and don't want to be, and don't want to have a child for whatever reason. How did they end up in this situation to begin with? Well, I assume they had sex with someone they don't want to have a child with, or at a time when having a child wasn't ideal. There could be a lot of contributing factors involved in the situation and ultimately the final decision. Those reasons are personal, and it shouldn't be up to you to decide. That decision should be made by the woman who is pregnant against her will and hers alone, whether she shares any culpability in her situation or not. A child isn't like a kitten or a puppy or a bunny or rabbit on Easter. You're on the hook for it for life, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. So let's talk about the reason women find themselves in that situation. Maybe she made a mistake. She had unprotected sex with a guy, and he wanted her to be pregnant, so he did the thing that makes them pregnant. Did he ask her if she wanted to be pregnant? Probably not. If he asked, and she said yeah, and then he did the thing, and she got pregnant, which never happens, and then she got an abortion at him to spite him, then she'd be a monster. If you can find me an example of that happening, I'd love to see it. We can both call that individual a monster and whatever else, and we can limit her and her alone to safe abortion accessibility. It's pretty fucking obvious how to prevent abortion without making them illegal. This issue baffles me because it doesn't make any sense. And then I realize why it doesn't make any sense. It's because it's a proxy war on women's autonomy. I'm thinking, how do these jingoistic warmongering motherfuckers get off telling people that abortion is murder, but then they brazenly support stupid wars and yellow ribbons and all that other bullshit like the death penalty? How can they in good faith call themselves pro-life? Well, it's because they speak out of both sides of their mouths. Orwellian doublespeak. The fight against abortion isn't about the sanctity of life. They don't really give a fuck about the sanctity of life. They aren't on the front lines of the ecological holocaust prevention. They want to force you by power of legislation to birth a human resource against your will. The abortion rate is declining, along with the birth rate, by the way, specifically for young white people. Now, if you have a problem with that, why? Is your view informed religiously? Because the Bible said, be fruitful and multiply? How convenient. We have a distinction between state and religious authority in this country for a reason. It's why this country was founded, you remember? You constitutional motherfucker. By the way, I'm getting pretty sick of the right-wing claim to a monopoly on patriotism. It's tired, it's stupid, and it's bullshit. It's disingenuous. We're all American, asshole. That's the problem. We all have to live under the laws that our representatives legislate. Representatives elected through gerrymandering, redistricting, and voter suppression. The GOP does not represent the majority of American views. That's a whole other sack of assholes, though. Maybe I'll talk about that in another day. So let's think about why a woman who finds herself pregnant might want to abort. In the spirit of fixing a problem at its root, rather than pretend we have a problem with murder, when really we have a problem with women exercising their autonomy over their own bodies. My guess is that it's financial. The majority of the time, I would say it's financially motivated. The woman got pregnant by a man who can't afford to pay for a child. You could say it that way. Or you could say a broke-ass motherfucker got a girl pregnant against her will, which is also a more accurate way to say it. Maybe the sex was consensual. Maybe it wasn't. But the pregnancy isn't. Or else we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't be having this discussion. Maybe she didn't know he was a broke-ass motherfucker. Maybe she thought the state would step in and help her out financially, and she realized that welfare queen myth wasn't as lucrative as Fox News had led her to believe it was. Maybe she found out her man wasn't the man he led her to believe he was. Really, who cares? It shouldn't matter why she doesn't want to be pregnant. She doesn't want to have a child. That should be enough reason in an enlightened society. There would be no unwanted children or unwanted pregnancies. In an enlightened society, there would be no unwanted children or unwanted pregnancies. So what are our legislators doing to create said enlightened society? Are they making contraception and sex education accessible? Of course not. Don't you think a good measure to prevent abortions is to prevent unwanted pregnancy? They don't support those measures because they're full of shit. They're lying. They aren't moralists. They're hypocrites. They hide behind some dogma, behind their religion to inform their fucking morals. Let me tell you something. If you're relying on the Bible to inform your morality, you're a sociopath. If you just believe in the Bible or the Quran or the Book of Mormon or whatever book you were raised to, or conned into accepting as the word of God, you're an idiot or a coward. The land of the free and the home of the brave. Show me a free person here. I'd love to meet one. Show me a brave person. I'll show you one. Chelsea Manning. How about Edward Snowden? How about Daniel Ellsberg? How about Daniel Hale? How about Fred Hampton? You know who's brave? Ilhan Omar. Yeah, I said it. The land of the free. Whoever told you that is your enemy. Let's go. Okay, so let's talk about Benjamin Franklin. He's quoted as saying, "He who would sacrifice freedom for security deserves neither." Do you believe that? Have you thought about it? The implications of it? Let's go full on Jordan Peterson and say, well, it depends on what you mean by freedom, security, or believe. Let me ask you something. What is freedom? What's security? Are you free? Tell me how. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Freedom is a myth. The myth of freedom. Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, motherfucker. Have you read it? Did you get it? It's a myth. It's not real. It's Santa Claus. It's Jesus and money and the authority of government. It only exists because you believe in it. Same with security. There is no security. That's why you buy insurance. Insurance is socialism in its own merit, if you think about it. It's a collective pool that people pay into in the event that something unexpected and bad happens to the individual. You see, that's the problem. People don't think. When they think they're thinking, they're really just glomming onto an argument that they already believe because it's something they were told that makes sense to them. We are seldom told the truth or the whole story. So we operate on bullshit intel. Subsequently, we have to argue over abortion, something that's preventable. You know, so knowledge is power, and the social dominance hierarchy is mostly interested in keeping the bottom tier stupid and uninformed. That's why our education system is a joke. That's why they want a bunch of kids born into poverty. They realized slavery was unsustainable and unethical as a racist institution. Did you watch 13th like I told you to? If you did, you know now that slavery wasn't abolished by the 13th Amendment. Rich people need poor people more than poor people need rich people. You ever heard that stupid line about how poor person never gave anyone a job? You know why that's bullshit, right? Because land ownership determined wealth that was inheritable since the dawn of civilization. The New World was a land grab and whatever. What happened? is that a bunch of inbred degenerates became land barons. They were too stupid to really consider what building a new nation on the backs of slaves stolen from Africa would result in. We've been a nation for less than 300 years. If you live to be 100 years old, that's only 3 people ago. We talk about the past like it's distant. These wounds are still bleeding. I'm off topic again. Women. This video is about how women shouldn't be forced to be human resource incubators for corporate plantations. I'll try to remain on topic. You know, I was gonna argue from the position of viability and the reality that we don't know when conception begins. You might have seen that Ben Shapiro just got fucking owned yesterday by another conservative. I don't want to get off on him. I could talk about him. I don't want to. Well, let's get into the viability argument. Life at conception, when we don't even know when the fuck that is. 6 weeks. A woman doesn't even know she's pregnant until that. An irregular period is 6 weeks long. Fucking idiots. Anyway. The real issue is whether we as a society should be forcing a woman to be pregnant against her will or to be a mother against her will. And that answer is an obvious and hard no. It's not a moral argument. Fuck it, let's go there. To deny someone the opportunity to be born isn't the same thing as killing someone, okay? It's just not. They don't know what it is to be a person. You have to be born in order to be a person and to know what it is to be a person. They don't have any sense of it. They can't see or hear or feel or think. That's because they aren't a person yet. The woman carrying the fetus, embryo, whatever you want, you can call it whatever you want, but it isn't a child. The woman is the best point of reference to determine whether or not that child, should it become one, be loved and nurtured in one of the most critical and developmental times of its life. Now that makes me think of something Gabor Mate wrote about in one of his books. I read a few articles on it. It's really kind of fascinating shit. Do you know about transgenerational trauma? They did a study on butterflies and caterpillars that kind of inspired it. Epigenetics. You familiar with that term? DNA, methylation, transgenerational effect. It's the basis for instinct. You ever wonder why a baby chick will freak the fuck out when it sees the shadow of a chicken hawk? It's never seen a chicken hawk before. But its instinct is to get the fuck out of the open when it does see one. Innately, inherently. We have the same thing going on with snakes and spiders. You can go ahead and have Peterson tell you an archetype about why we created dragons and the bad guy in the Genesis story is a snake. It's a base negative reaction to threat. Cats and cucumbers. You seen those videos on the internet? Cats flipping the fuck out over a cucumber. Turns out we are informed genetically to respond to specific shit that can kill us. They did some studies where they caused an association with pain and a specific scent in lab animals. I can't remember the specifics, but they'd introduce the scent of, say, like lavender or something, followed by an electrical shock in one beta test group. Then they would force them to copulate. Then they would introduce the lavender scent to the following generations of both test subjects, and the ones that were descended from the shocked specimens exhibited anxiety by the smell of lavender, and not in the other test group. There was no association to a shock by that scent. They both found similar findings in the descendants of Jewish Holocaust survivors. Now apply that to the descendants of African American slaves, and you have a counter-argument against Candace Owens' brand of right-wing bullshit and every other racist that believes slavery is over and blacks should just get over it. That shit is now in their DNA, and it's going to take some time to heal from. Our current method of addressing racial injustice is only kicking the can of affect further and further into the future. We're not talking about racism now, though. We're talking about sexism, or rather, women's reproductive rights and why women shouldn't be forced to be pregnant against their will for the good of society. For fuck's sakes, dude. This shit should be obvious. What's the correlation between crime statistics and Roe v. Wade? Are you aware of it? Crime statistics dropped profoundly approximately 15 years after abortion was legalized. And most crime is committed by young males between the ages of 15 and 18. It's a coincidence, right? So you're pro-life until the fetus grows up and becomes a drug-addicted prostitute or a gangbanger. Fantastic. We need to think about this shit. It's not actually that complicated when we're honestly addressing it for what it is and not using it as a proxy war to subjugate and control women. That shit's over. We're never going back there. We aren't going into a Handmaid's Tale future without a fight. So stop pretending it's about the rights of the unborn and the sanctity of life. If that were the actual case, you'd be doing something to stop our kids from being shot in schools. You aren't. You're afraid of the government becoming tyrannical? Open your eyes. It's time for the time for resisting tyranny of the government with violence is over. I'm sorry to always bring up the race war, but I'm actually in it, so it affects the way I see the world. And what takes precedence of priority in my view? It's really hard to convince stupid people how evil is exploiting them. It's like idle hands do the devil's work. No, it's stupid people that are doing the devil's work. Beau of the Fifth said something last week that pretty much exposes the religious conservative hypocrisy for what it is. Little thought experiment. Say you find yourself in a situation where you have 1,000 fetuses in one hand and a 6-year-old little kid named Billy in the other, and you have to willfully engage in a... Say you find yourself in a situation where you have 1,000 fetuses in one hand and a 6-year-old kid named Billy in the other. You have to willfully engage in a course of action that will save Billy's life at the expense of 1,000 fetuses. Or you save 1,000 fetuses and Billy dies. What do? Obviously you save the fetuses, right? Fuck Billy, right? Sorry, Billy. Sorry, Billy's mom and dad. Sorry, but 1,000 fetuses are worth more than one 6-year-old, Billy. What does it matter what age Billy is? What if he's 43? Do you save the fetuses and kill Billy then? Of course you don't. And if you say otherwise, then you're admitting that you're full of shit. Why? Because Billy is a fucking person. And 1,000 fetuses are not. But we know it really isn't about that. It's about controlling women's reproductive systems. You'll see it if you look for it. Look on these incel fuck YouTubes. They have a catchphrase. Quote, "She's not yours, it's just your turn." They hate that women can choose. That's the whole principle behind Jordan Peterson's stupid enforced monogamy bullshit. Joe Rogan called him out on it. Everyone should be. Be a better man, motherfucker. Stop bitching about how bad you have it. It makes you look weak and stupid. No fucking wonder women don't like you. Why would they? You want your tiny and ineffectual government to regulate their pussies through religious dogma or legislation? You ain't an anarchist, man. You're not about personal liberty. You aren't in favor of the unalienable rights of the individual. You're just a scared, weak little asshole. Subsequently, women find you repulsive, as well as your fucking lobster king. This is toxic masculinity in a nutshell. I was going to do a whole fucking show about that. I'll just put it in this one. A man that wants to control women isn't a man. Talk around it all you want. Well, it's good for the children. It's not good for little boys. You know what isn't good for little boys, motherfucker? Abusive households, pedophile priests, and scout leaders, you moron. Take up arms against them. The radicals want to throw Western civilization into upheaval. The fuck out of here. Competence, motherfucker. What's competent about Western civilization? We have iPhones and no health insurance. We don't have a livable wage. That's why women are having abortions, dipshit. It's because men are broke. Because we outsourced our labor. Our labor isn't economically expedient, so your nationalist ass voted for a businessman. And guess who got the gig, Jack? Not you. Pull your heads out of your asses because nothing exists in a vacuum except your dumbass opinion that you have a right to. You want men to be fathers and women to stop having abortions. Fight for equality. That's what it's really about. You don't want women to be your equal. You care more about property rights than human rights. You think the social dominance hierarchy, that as long as women are property, then you won't be at the bottom of the pyramid. Meanwhile, the courageous are daring to love, and it exposes you as a weak, stupid little tyrant. The social justice warrior types today were the Martin Luther Kings of yesterday. The freedom fighters. Fucking clown world, please. That's all I have to say about that right now.